Hi, I'm Annabelle and I'm taking over as host of the Channel Chat podcast for our special Rising Stars series. And our first guest is Dominique Blaize, Distribution Manager at Veeam. Hi Dominic, and thank you for joining us in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. So I guess we just take it back to the start because you've got a very unique career background. So we're always curious about how people find their way into tech, and your path is especially unique. So you were actually a national athletics champion and even represented Great Britain.
Yes, I always joke that it was a past body and a past life. But yes, I suppose originally I started off in sport. My sport was athletics, and I was fortunate enough that I ended up representing Great Britain over numerous years in both heptathlon and then long jump.
Wow, that's really impressive. Have you found that the discipline and mindset from your athletics career has helped you in your current role in tech?
Oh, definitely. I think athletics kind of shaped who I am today. I did it from such a young age. I don't remember a time in my life I didn't do it. I sort of started around 7 or 8 and then kind of competed all the way up to about 25. So it's, huge kind of moulding on who I am today. And yeah, that ability to kind of, I suppose, set yourself a goal, work out how you do it, get there, and, definitely has kind of helped me in who I am today. And I've managed to bring that and transition that into my kind of what I call my second life or my professional career now.
So how did you actually get into tech from being in athletics? Like, that's quite a big jump into something completely different.
So it was really random. I suppose I sort of ended up finishing my athletics career and ended up kind of just sitting down with a recruiter, local to Kingston, where my family was originated from. And they were just like, what are you good at? And I can remember being like, well, I'm quite like type A. I like to be organised. I don't mind talking to people. And then they were like, actually, we know this kind of like tech company. We've recruited for them before. I'll, see if I can set up an interview for you there. And I kind of just managed to, wing it slightly. I was really honest. I was like, I don't know anything about tech, but this is what I'm good at and I'm willing to learn. And because I think that recruiter had such a good relationship with that organisation, having previously placed people, they were willing to kind of take a bit of a bet on me. And that was it then. I suppose that was kind of then the start of my career. So it was really, really accidental on my part. It wasn't something that I sort of looked at and thought, oh, that's what I want to do next. I really wasn't sure, kind of going from something that took up so much of my life and was such a big part of it. I kind of hadn't really thought that far past being an athlete, which, bad part on me, because that career wasn't long standing. And then, just sort of fell into it that way.
Do you feel like you've encountered any big problems or anything that was hard, like transitioning into the corporate world from a sport background?
No, because weirdly, I think, especially when I've kind of gone through meeting people, most people in this industry normally has some sort of sporting background. And, the amount of people that I meet, they're either interested in rugby, football, Formula One, or they've done sport themselves. I think that's kind of lots of other kind of kindred spirits have ended up here in this industry too. I think for me, I suppose the hardest transition was probably just letting go of that dream. But that's, that's personal to kind of suppose to me. And I'll always say that, yes, I was really lucky. I got to compete at a really high level, but I never achieved my ultimate dream. And for me, that will always be my greatest failure in life.
What was that dream? That was to...
I suppose it was, to be lucky enough to, I suppose, make an Olympic Games.
Yeah.
There's very, very few people on this earth can say that they represented Team GB.
And it's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, and I wanted to be part of that, really small percentage of people that did. And unfortunately for me, body and mind at varying points let me down on that, or it just wasn't my time, or I wasn't lucky enough. That's for me, it's that personal working out what's next was the hardest
everything
transition.
Happens for a reason.
Everything
so maybe that's why you're in tech now. There we go. Do you have any mentors or key figures who helped guide you through that career shift, or anyone that stands out to you in your mind?
I think I was really lucky in the fact that my training group at that time, we all sort of transitioned out the sport at a really similar time, and we were all there for each other. And I was also really fortunate that I suppose weirdly I lost a bet with my old throws coach at the same time as I just decided to hang up my spikes, which then meant I had to learn how to throw hammer. So it's part of my transition out of the sport. I was still going down to the track and I was still participating. And then I decided to kind of be part of my old athletics club when I was a child, kind of helping back that way, volunteering, kind of being general secretary for a little bit. And that kind of helped, I suppose, steady me in that one foot in, one foot out, kind of moving on transition. And so, it's hard to kind of pinpoint one particular person. Like, it was a whole group of people that just kept checking in to make sure I was okay.
Oh, amazing, that's lovely. So for any people watching from the outside, what kind of advice would you give them to stepping into a tech career if they wanted to do that?
The main thing is you don't have to be technical.
Yeah.
I always joke that my technical knowledge is you turn it on and you turn it off again. So I think lots of people look at the tech industry and think, you've got to know how it all works. But actually there are so many roles out there that just aren't that wet. You don't have to be technical. And I think as long as you're open to learning, you'll be amazed at how much you can kind of pick up.
No, I totally agree with that. Anyone can learn any job if you put your mind to it. You don't have to know all about the technicality of a laptop or stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's I think everyone does look at our industry and thinks, if I don't know how to set up a server or set up, I can't do it. And that's not, there's so many jobs.
100%. No, I totally agree with that. We are speaking during the same week as the Veeam Partner Summit in London. What are you personally hoping to achieve from this event?
For me, I suppose those events are critical in just terms of getting our kind of partners together. There's lots of stuff going on at Veeam at the minute, and tomorrow is a really good opportunity, I suppose, to kind of get all of those partners, whether it's distribution, resale, plus end users together. But for me, I suppose I'm just really looking forward to kind of, I suppose, seeing kind of all of my disties in one space, kind of, catching up with certain people that I don't always get to see on a regular basis. Because, it's people, isn't it? And we live in such a world now where I think so many people rely on a Teams or a Zoom or Google Workspace chat, that actually that ability just to kind of be in person and catch up with people is priceless.
Yeah, super important to have that face-to-face interaction. So if you look ahead, what trends do you think will impact the channel ecosystem in the next 2 to 3 years?
That's a hard one.
So much.
Yeah.
So
there is so much going on, and there's so much, I suppose, we all love a buzzword in this industry. But I think for me, I suppose that partner ecosystem kind of working collaboratively. I think more and more now when we're going into, everyone now is so focused, I suppose, on end user, kind of solving the problems for the end user. And when you look at kind of staff shortages and who's good at what, I think we're probably more likely to see more of our partner base working collaboratively with each other. That's already happening, in small pockets, but I think that's just going to grow even greater. And I think, I know it feels like the last couple of years have been the years of acquisition, and I think potentially we're going to reach that point where actually instead of just buying each other, we're going to work out really good ways of I can't say that word today. Cohesively working together to kind of deliver a project for an end user. It doesn't matter that you as a partner aren't selling the entire project piece. You're playing a particular part in it, and you're happy to take that part, but working collaboratively with another partner who might be delivering something else depending on their speciality.
So sticking to the theme of 2025 and what's going to happen in 2025, in the channel space, whether it's a reseller, an MSP, a distributor or vendor, who do you think is the one to watch?
Veeam? Can I say that?
You can say Veeam.
Am I allowed to be biased?
You can be biased.
But no, I suppose, in all honesty, that's a really hard question, because in all of those spaces, there is so much going on. Truthfully, for me, I suppose an overarching trend, other than obviously Veeam being amazing, is that MSP space. I think it's quite interesting to see kind of what's happening there, and I think as we're moving to this everything as a service model that end users are wanting more and more, I think there are some really big players already in that space, and I think that's just going to kind of continue to grow. I'm not going to pick a favourite. I'm going to stay on the fence on that one, but I think that's the space.
Stick bias on yourself. I love that. So you've been vocal about the importance of diverse teams. What personally drives your passion for promoting diversity and inclusion in the tech sector?
The more voices that have different opinions, I think the greater the outcome. I think we've all read kind of varying books on the importance of, having different opinions and different life experiences, to then when you're looking at one thing, how everyone looks at it in different ways. And I've definitely found that, you know, when I've been in a room of people that all look the same and sound the same and talk the same, nothing changes. And actually we live in a world now that's constantly evolving and constantly changing. And if we're not hearing the different opinions and different thought processes, and I can look at something and I can say, oh, that's orange, but you might look at it and say, actually, no, I think it's more red. That's not a bad thing that we think differently. It's actually, it's a positive thing. And we're far more, I think in those moments, you're far more likely to find the right answer than you are kind of, you know, just continuing down the same path that you've been continuing down all the time.
No, yeah, I think it's super important that you bring like different things to the table, and everyone does bring something so different. And like you said, everyone does see things completely differently. So you once described emotional intelligence as a superpower on LinkedIn. How does that concept influence how you lead and work with others?
Emotional intelligence is a really tough one. Like, you know, for me, I suppose I've learned over the years of, I suppose, learning how to read my team. You know, you kind of, you know, when I've had a team, when I've been managing them before, kind of getting to know them as a person. And I think a lot of the times in the workplace, we all turn up and we've all, you know, got to be professional and we've got to be, you know, that person. But we've all got lots of stuff going on in the background. We've all got home lives. I think since the, you know, the dreaded word pandemic, everyone gets to see behind that kind of curtain a little bit more now. But I also am aware of the fact that, you know, sometimes just because you've got to tell someone something, sometimes it's about reading them in that moment and understanding if that's the right time to tell them. Actually, you know, it's kind of
knowing the person.
Knowing the person. If they, you know, sometimes when you get on a call with someone and their opening sentence, you go, oh, they've had a bad day. And actually, right now, I don't need to come in with this news that's just going to like compound it even further. Actually, I can park that until tomorrow when hopefully you'll wake up and you're in a slightly better headspace. Because I think a lot of the time constructive feedback is only constructive if someone's willing and able to sit back and listen to it. So I think, you know, that ability to know and understand, but it's also, you know I've had moments where I've been given constructive feedback and I've not been in the place to receive it. And then I kind of, you know, your automatic reaction then is
go on the defence.
I always call it my inner chimp. Like my inner chimp comes out and I start, you know, like no, and that was something actually I did a lot of kind of reading that book about the inner chimp when I was doing the athletics, and it's still something I've brought into kind of how I look at how I react to stuff now. And I can remember not that long ago having a conversation with my manager and he was giving me some feedback and I did just react. I kind of couldn't help myself, and at the end of it I was like, I'm really sorry for being really defensive, but I, you know, this moment, the day I've had today, actually in this moment, it's just the last thing you needed to hear. Just like, I just didn't need to hear
icing
that
on the cake.
And it was, you know, and I think actually, as well as knowing and being able to read other people, actually just being open and honest about yourself. So if you do react in a way, actually going, I know I reacted. And if it's not in that moment, it's the next day, but actually going, I reacted, these are the reasons why I reacted. And I, you know, but actually I've sat back, I've thought about it, I've heard it now, and I understand the feedback and I understand X, Y, and Z. But I think, you know, we're all lots of people put so much focus on presenting a certain type of person or a certain type of personality that we're not always willing to kind of admit when actually
hold my hands
up. I can hold my hands up there and, you know, and admit it.
We are complex individuals.
We are.
But we're all human. We're all human.
Yeah, the human mind and the way the human brain works.
It's crazy.
And the way that we've got that ability to react to things. Even when someone looks like they're having a good day, like, you know, depending on how well someone can mask stuff, you've got no idea what's going on at home.
What challenges have you faced when advocating for diversity, if any?
The biggest challenge on it is how quickly people expect to see change. I kind of, whenever I've kind of promoted diversity, no one's ever had a problem with but it's how quickly you expect to see that change. You know, organisations can't change overnight. We can't change processes or policies overnight. And a lot of the time I think people actually get frustrated at the speed that we're moving at when it comes to diversity. And I think actually sometimes you just got to like look back and go, oh, actually, you know, 30 years ago we were here and actually today we're there. And it's that ability to celebrate the small wins, and sometimes those small wins are really hard to celebrate because they are like teeny tiny. But yeah, I think we've all got to get better at just celebrating those and not expecting everything to change overnight, because I think everyone spends so much time looking forwards that no one ever kind of turns and reflects back. And that sometimes is when you suddenly look back and you go, oh my God, actually I was there and now I'm here.
I can be self-critical of that. I'm like, I actually look how far you've come, and then you're like, wow, then you actually see like I've come from here to here, and that's such an achievement.
And rather than going,
looking at the
I'm
bigger
not
picture.
I'm not there yet.
Exactly.
It's like, we're not going to be there for a while.
So
let's
we'll get there.
enjoy the journey.
Exactly.
I always talk
Trust the process.
like snakes and ladders.
I'm
always like, well, you're not back at one.
No.
You may have gone back, but we're not back at one.
Exactly.
And yes, we want to get to 100. We all want to win the game.
Exactly.
But it's just how you're going to get there and taking your time with it.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. For other leaders listening, what advice would you offer on building and nurturing truly inclusive environments?
Do actions rather than saying words. I think there's a lot of leaders out there that say the right things, like, I'm always here for you, my door's always open, I'll always listen, this is an open forum, you can say whatever you like. And then people go to do those things and that person's not there, or actually they get shut down. And I've always said this, and I can remember saying this to a previous manager, is I won't judge you by your words, I'll judge you by your actions. I think that's, I think if you're not able to do something, don't say it. Don't say it.
Yeah.
It's, it's like, oh yeah, I'll be there on Friday, but you're not going. Like you don't do that to people.
No, it's not
so
nice.
it's kind of, I think that's the key thing as a leader is, and I also think like, I'll only ask someone to do something if I'm willing to do it. So actually, if you're not willing to do that thing that you're asking of someone, don't ask them to do it. And kind of like, it's that leading by example.
So with everything on your plate, how do you manage to balance your professional responsibilities with your personal life?
I don't, in all honesty. And I hate this whole perception of like, oh, you can do it all. And for me, that's a question as well that often women get asked. And actually men don't get asked that question very often. I've not often sat in a room with a man and they've gone, how do you do it all? And it's very much so like a female-centric one. I don't do it all. I have a village, or a city as I like to call it. And I have a huge group of people around me that actually will pick up certain slacks and do certain things. And, I do have a busy life. I am a mum, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a colleague. And some days I'm really bad at 90% of those and only good at one thing, and then other days I'm really good at 90% of them and just bad at one. And I've just learned to kind of try, I'm really bad at not kicking myself, because again, we're human, so I'm not even going to try to pretend that I'm really good at it. But actually what I have got round me now is a network of people who recognise when I'm kicking myself about not doing something or not being, oh God, I keep forgetting to text them and I still haven't, or, I still haven't done X, Y, and Z. And they're just like, it's okay. Yeah. And I think that's, and having that support system around me, whether it's a work colleague or a friend or, my mum or my husband, it's kind of, you just learn to not do it all. And and I'm awful at it. And again, that's my sporting background, as I hold myself to this standard of like unachievable standards. And I know that it's unachievable. And I think I've learned the hard way in trying to do it all. Yeah. And I've kind of managed to catch myself at the brink, and now I refuse to try. And I just do what I can.
Just live life.
Yeah, and I just, I kind of go as long as my kids are alive, everyone's fed, everyone's generally okay around me, and my husband's not planning on leaving me anytime soon, or like everyone's just generally fine.
Everyone's vibing, okay. Everyone's good.
Everyone's vibing, we're all good. Work's not on fire. I'm not about to get sacked.
Exactly.
It's
the
okay.
world's still turning.
And sometimes the world right now isn't necessarily a very positive place. There's lots of bad things going on, but I just go, this is my unit and this is my bubble, and that's what I can influence, and that's what I'm going to focus on. And I try not to, you do what you can for others, and always, sometimes you've just got to go, actually, I'm just going to close the door now and I'm going to sit with my Kindle for 30 minutes and just ignore everything.
I love that. Shut off the outside world, just go away.
I don't watch the news. I don't need to hear it.
Exactly. Oh, well, thank you so much for being our first guest on the Rising
Thank you
Star
for having
series.
me. It's been fun.
Oh, it's been so good. Thank you.
Thank you.